Grand opening, grand closing. Welcome, my friends, my family, my fellow gamers. This is your only friend, these YouTube Streets PorterRock77, back with another video. And let's talk this real quick right here. Look what we got here. Sony making a handheld console to compete with Nintendo and Microsoft. The portable console could natively play PS5 games without active Wi-Fi connection. All right. Bloomberg released a report, so now everybody's referencing it, that Sony's in the works, and in a couple of years they'll release, potentially release a native PlayStation handheld that will natively play PlayStation 5 games. This was talked about in my podcast. J-Dub mentioned it, that the Portal was known as Q Lite, and then there's Project Q, right? Which could reference an actual native handheld. It looks like it's happening, right? Now, the question is this. Is there a market for this? Possibly. Like, let's look at a couple of things right here, right? Obviously, we actually do have examples in the market, right? We have Asus. This is an example right here that you guys are seeing, right? This is the Legion Go Pro, right? I actually like the look of this one, to be honest. Oh, nice big screen and stuff. And then you have possibly the more popular model of Steam Deck. Now, again, what I mean by popular is in terms of this AAA realm. Switch, obviously, in its own right, is the best-selling, most dominant handheld out there, bar none, not even close, right? But when you look at what these games play, like the controls, as you can see here, Dooms and stuff like that, right? What games you see on Lenovo, Starfield, right? So, you know, Xbox Game Pass and Steam, you know, Redfall, and, you know, just even God of War, you know, because that's on, you know, Steam and PC and stuff like that. When you look at these things and these type of games, right, this type of handheld, right, it's a little bit different market than what Nintendo brings, right? But the thing is, this market, me trying to research, there's not a lot of mainstream sales. Steam Deck doesn't reveal numbers, and the best I could get is, you know, analysts talking about that at this point, Steam Deck could be around 4 million sales, maybe even 5. And when you think about when Steam Deck launched in February 2022, it's over 2 years. It's almost 3 years, in fact. February 2025 will be 3 years. Even if at 5 million sales in a 3-year period, that's not mainstream. In fact, Meta VR sells a lot better than that. So that's not really a big mainstream. So what, you know, and check this out right here, right? Why doesn't Valve release? Well, there's one source reading here, and I'll read it to you. It says, in absolute terms, the Steam Deck would be a great success if it sold 1 million in 2022 in the middle of a challenging component shortage, with Steam as the only online distribution channel. It would even be more impressive if it did sell twice or 3 times as much. Folks in the Linux gaming community would probably rejoice at the idea that a Linux-based device reached some kind of mainstream appeal for gaming Now, in my opinion, I'm gonna say this. In my opinion, I don't know if 3 million is mainstream appeal. I guess. I mean, the best I could do is compare it to consoles or compare it to past handhelds, but most of the past handhelds are Nintendo, and they sell extremely well, right? So is that the standard? Maybe, maybe not, right? There's new territory, to be honest, right? If this is the new standard, if 3 million, 4 million, 5 million sales in 3 years is like the new standard, I can see why Microsoft and Sony want to get back in the game, right? Because even the PSP sold like hell. Even the Vita sold better than this, but maybe there's a different standard. But to continue, but even if it did sold 3 million in the year 2022, the headline for Valve from the usual gaming media would likely be terrible. And I agree, because look at the sub points, and I would believe these headlines would be there, right? Because they would compare it to the Switch. Like the first headline would be Steam Deck sold 4 times less than the Switch in 2022. Steam Deck is the platform with the slowest growth. Especially in 2022, when you compare Steam Deck with Switch, and even though Steam Deck's a handheld, they're gonna somehow try to compare with like the PS5 and Xbox sales, right? Just as a general gauge, right? And it would look bad. Encouraging sales for the Steam Deck, but still ways to go to compete. Valve has failed again to gain a foothold in the hardware market. I think that's in relation to Steam machines, stuff like that, right? So there would be some negativity behind that. But I think it's because how can we really gauge how well this AAA, let's call it the AAA handheld gaming market, right? where you can play Game Pass, or you could play, games from Steam and stuff like that, right? And you could play some of the AAA games that are certified on the platform and stuff, right? How well are these devices supposed to sell? And if Steam Deck, let's say Steam Deck at 5 million, we'll just call it 5 million in 3 years, and that's huge success. I can see why Xbox and PlayStation are willing to jump at the opportunity to create those handheld, because I think they believe that they can do much better than that, right? Right there, you saw the image of the PlayStation Portal, right? Um, you know what? Let's just do it like that. I think they believe that they can do better than Steam. Especially Sony. Sony could be like, oh, we could definitely sell more than 5 million in 3 years when we make a handheld, right? But is that market that big? Can Sony release a handheld and sell 30 million, 40 million, right? Obviously, we know the king of handhelds, and let's not lie to ourselves, right? That's the Switch. Switch right here. This is the king right here. You not messing with this. If there's a handheld that's gonna sell 100 million again, it's the Nintendo Switch 2. Let's stop playing. Let's stop playing, right? Because this thing has one thing the others don't. This has exclusives. Nintendo exclusives. Now, technically speaking, right? If you really want to get technical, right? If you really want to get technical, devices like these, they run on Windows operating systems. So, you can find ways to play Nintendo games on this. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying if you want to get technical and, and PC do PC things, right? You can technically play the Switch and stuff like that, right? But, that's a different conversation, right? That's a different conversation altogether, right? But this thing's going to sell. Switch 2 is going to sell when this comes out. And apparently, announcement is going to be made in January. Rumor has it for a March release. So Switch 2 is going to sell like blockbusters. It's going to have exclusives, the Nintendo stuff, right? So what will a PlayStation do? Well, PlayStation, as you said, is just PlayStation 5 games, right? So what challenges can a PlayStation 5, or let's call it the new PlayStation Portal, PlayStation Handheld, I don't know what they're going to call it, but what challenges will a PlayStation Handheld that plays PlayStation 5 games have? Well, number one, price, I think, right? It is a few years away, but right now, if you look at the cost of a PlayStation 5 Slim, right, on a regular price, retail price, it's $450. There's holiday deals right now for $379, but that's just a temporary Black Friday deal. It's going to shoot right back up to $450. So if the console is $450, how much is it going to cost to shrink it into a handheld and add a screen to it, right? That could be a pretty penny. That thing could be $500, but we'll have to wait and see. If they release this handheld, let's say 2028, okay, I can see a PlayStation 5 handheld in 2028 being $400. Okay, I can see that. All right, if that's the time frame of when they want to release it, because I don't think this thing's ready anytime soon. Maybe it is. I don't know. Will this be out in 2025, 2026? I can see 2027 and having that long curve where they could release at a reasonable price. But then here's the second issue. What is the expectation from the community? Sure, a lot of hardcore PlayStation games, they just want a good native handheld and they'll play it. But it's going to have some criticisms. And what do you think the number one criticism is going to be? The number one criticism is going to be, where are the exclusives? You got to know that, right? Because without exclusives, people are going to ask, then why, people are going to ask, why would people get a PlayStation handheld when they could get this? Or they could get this, right? Or they could get a Steam Deck, right? And they could play those same PS5 games on these devices already. They could play these, right, on these devices, plus Game Pass, plus Steam, plus PlayStation games, right? If the handheld's not going to have exclusives, okay? Think about it. A lot of games are multiplats, and those multiplats could be played on these handhelds as well, right? So, really, this is probably another device for the PlayStation ecosystem, maybe? Maybe not for the mainstream, because again, if you're a mainstream handheld gamer, you probably pick up one of the other handhelds, you know? Unless you're a hardcore PlayStation guy, then it makes sense, right? But here's the thing. By the time the PlayStation, this handheld comes out, we'll probably be closer to the PlayStation 6. And you're not going to get these PlayStation 6 games. It's primary PS5 games. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I think this whole conversation of Xbox getting to handheld and PlayStation is because the current handhelds are not knocking it out the park. They haven't blown up the industry, especially Steam Deck. You know, Steam Deck right now is 2 years, right? Almost 3 years. It should be. I ain't gonna say it should be, but let's say if it was at 25 million, 30 million, 40 million, right? Then maybe you wouldn't see Xbox and Sony get in the market only because of how dominant Steam is. But if Steam's only at 4 or 5, hell, even 6 million, I think they see an opportunity to use the brand name PlayStation, Xbox, and jump right in and just take it all over. Just steal the thunder away from these devices. I know, sure, many people are saying, "Oh no, these rogue devices better, blah blah blah," but the sales data or the lack of sales data just shows it's not really a big market. And the question is, will it ever be a big market? Are these devices stuck at 5, 6, 7 million or so? We'll find out. We'll find out if and when Sony and Microsoft, push out their stuff. And let's say they do push out their stuff around the same time. Is that the new battle between Sony and Microsoft? Just strictly on the handheld side? Because the console's over. That's already a forgotten situation. That's already done. Don't even bother trying to bring that up. Don't even bother trying to hype a scenario where Xbox as a console will ever compete with a PlayStation. They're already done and tapped to that, right? Interesting. Interesting. But then again, Xbox games would probably run on this new PlayStation handheld anyway, right? A lot of questions. Kind of weird. But I'm sure there's going to be some gamers excited at the thought of another PlayStation handheld, right? It's just a question of how many, right? How many will buy it? How many will say, nah, they'll stick with a Rogue, a Lenovo, a Steam Deck? Interesting questions. Interesting future. Interesting strategies Sony is trying to come up with. Anyway, this is the only friend is YouTube Streets PorterRock77. If you're new to the channel, stick around by subscribing, hitting that notification. Check out my podcast every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. 60 frames, no lag with the crew tomorrow, in fact. And I hope you enjoy it. But you let me know. Are you interested in a PlayStation handheld? And here's first question. Answer these two questions in the comments. Are you interested in a PlayStation handheld? That's number one. And then number two, why a PlayStation handheld? When you already have options right now. Right now. Even like this one right here. Well, let me show y'all. Let me go back to the image. This Lenovo looks clean. I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Like, no cap. This is a nice looking clean. And this screen looks huge. Right? It looks, that looks nice. I ain't gonna lie. That looks nice. That looks nice. So you tell me, would you like a PlayStation handheld? And if you do, why? When you got something like this already available, what is it about the PlayStation handheld that you're expecting that makes you want to get that? Is it just simply the name PlayStation? Because I'll be honest, that to me, that looks good compared to all the other ones. I don't know why. It looks really good. It looks clean. But anyway, you let me know. Hit up the comment section. Take care. Don't forget to hit the like video also. Peace. Grand opening